Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to East Central Missouri and the world, and welcome to the James Strong Show podcast number 269. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for making us a part of your day. I appreciate it. This podcast was recorded on the morning of Sunday, May the 22nd, from the James Strong Studio in western St. Charles County. I'm not certain if I've ever done a Sunday morning podcast before. I've done Sunday evenings, I've done Saturday mornings, Saturday evenings, Monday through Friday mornings, afternoons, evenings. I don't think I've ever done a Sunday morning. So perhaps this is a first, perhaps not. I'm not 100% sure. The topic of today's podcast, I chose it because of something that happened this week. As many of you know, one of the goals in life for the trophy wife and I is to see the last of the old rockers before they go off into the sunset or assume room temperature or stop performing or stop being what they were, okay? And this week we had an opportunity, Thursday night, to see Don Mclean, the American Pie guy. Yeah, he was at the Two Hills Center in Umsel, a nice, cozy little venue. Easy to get to, easy in and out. You don't have to pay for parking. You don't have to take your life in your own hands when you're walking from your car to the venue. And you know your car will not be broken into and have the tires stolen when you walk back. So it was nice to go to the Two Hills Center and see Don Mclean. I'll give you a review on the concert, and also the title of the podcast, the title of the main part of the podcast again, the Don Mclean You Never Knew. And I'm doing this more and more just because there are so many of those old rockers out there, and that you've heard of. I mean, everyone has heard of Don Mclean. Everyone knows, oh yeah, that's the guy who sang American Pie. Everybody knows that, okay? Well, first of all, that was 50 years ago this year. 1972. So that's why he's touring and doing the song and other songs, of course, because that song was written and performed 50 years ago. My, how time flies. But we're going to talk about the Don Mclean that you didn't know. Interesting guy, known, I would say respected more in the movie or the music business, the music global music world than at least I had any idea. But we'll talk about that a little bit. Before we do that, I just want one little caveat as to what's going on right now in the Strong household. It's currently 11:38 in the morning, okay? And a Cardinal baseball game began at 10:30 in the morning. You think to yourself, well, why would a Cardinal baseball game start at 10:30 on a Sunday morning? Well, first of all, they are on the East Coast, and so they're an hour ahead of us. But that's still very early for a baseball game. And so the trophy wife, who's a huge Cardinal fan, asked me that question. Why would they start so early? I said, well, only one reason. They're not going to be on their regular station because somebody has written a check for more money than Bally Sports Midwest. Well, sure enough, that's what happened. The Cardinal game today is on the Paramount Network, whatever that is, okay? You want to watch the Cardinal game today, you have to download the app, pay money for it, and then you can watch the Cardinal baseball game. So it's not enough that we pay money to subscribe to Bally Sports Midwest, where the Cardinal games are. No, if we want to see this particular one, we have to subscribe and pay extra money to another company to watch it. The trophy wife spent better than a half an hour trying to figure a different way to do it. You cannot do it. You got to write a check or you're not going to watch this baseball game. And she's angry. And I would think others are angry. I'm not angry. I am quite frankly apathetic. I could care two shakes about the Cardinals and their dopey pay money to see us play baseball anymore. If they're on, I'll watch it. I'll listen to it on the radio if I'm doing something else. If it gets to be October and they're in the playoffs, I'll get a little bit excited. But sports and just about everything out there, it's always about the money, and I get that, okay? But the thing about sports anymore is it's not just about the money. It's constantly about the money. Okay, you want to watch the baseball game, you're going to write a big check to Bally Sports Midwest. And if you want to watch all the games, you're going to have to write other checks to other people to watch all those games. If you want to buy a ticket to see their baseball game, not only are you going to pay at least $30 to see it in a bleacher seat, but you're going to pay money to the people who actually broker the tickets. Yeah, if you buy these tickets online, you pay extra money just for a convenience fee. Convenience fee? Yeah, the convenience of actually buying the ticket. Friends, my prediction is this is the second quarter of 2022. The first quarter of 2022, the economy declined. Negative growth. All indicators, many indicators are we're going to have this in the second quarter as well. 2 quarters in a row of negative growth equals a recession. So the good times are gone for now. They'll be back. Don't worry. They'll be back. I'm not going to be doom and gloom about this. But what is the first thing that people do when they need extra money or don't have enough money to go around? Okay, I'm used to paying $2.25 a gallon for gasoline, and now I'm paying $4.49. Well, I'm paying almost twice as much for gasoline. Well, maybe twice as much for gasoline as I was a couple of years ago. What do? You cut something else out. What's the easiest thing to cut out? How about paying money to see a stupid baseball game on television? How about paying money to Amazon for the convenience of having them drop it on your front door instead of going out to Walmart and fighting the madding crowd? Folks, we are in for big time changes. And it's not doom and gloom. It's not the end of the world, but things are in the process of changing. They just are. And quite frankly, I'm okay with it. Just keep your eyes open for what those changes are and make sure you don't get caught in the middle. Okay, the Don McLean you never knew. I mentioned that on Thursday, the trophy wife and I went to the Two Hills Center at UMSL, University of Missouri, St. Louis, and saw Don McLean. He's doing his American Pie tour. It's the 50th anniversary of that song, that iconic song, American Pie, that he wrote and performed, was a number one hit. And American Pie was just not a number one hit. American Pie was arguably the greatest pop rock song ever written. I say arguably because many of you will disagree with me, and that's fine. That's an opinion. I'm not even sure if I think it's the greatest pop rock song ever written and performed. I will say, and you would probably have to agree with me, that it's at least in the top 10, maybe the top 5. The song was huge, and there was so much, was it controversy or discussion? I'm not sure as to what the song was even about. We talk about that in the essay a little bit. And we talk a little bit about Don McLean, who he was, what he was all about, what he did, why he did what he did, and how much he's worth, and a slight review on the concert. Remember the goal. Our goal is to see all these old rockers before it's too late. We saw him. Was it too late? We'll save that for later. But a little bit about Don McLean. I mean, he was born in 1945, which puts him at, 76 years old, okay? So not a spring chicken. American songwriter, best known for his 1971 hit song, American Pie. So actually it was released in 71. This is the 50-year tour. I think it started during COVID. They're just now picking it up as to why they're still riding that 50-year horse. But it's an 8.5-minute long folk rock song. Some call it a cultural touchstone. It's about the loss of innocence in the early rock and roll generation. Now, he had other hits as well. Vincent, that's a song about Vincent van Gogh, which we will talk about. Dreidel, Wonderful Baby, as well as his renditions of Roy Orbison's Crying, and the Skyliners, Since I Don't Have You. Now, Don McLean also composed a song called And I Love You So. You've heard the song. It's been recorded by Elvis Presley, Perry Como, Helen Reddy, Glenn Campbell, and others. In fact, it was a number one hit on the adult contemporary by Perry Como back in the early 1970s. So he's done more than American Pie, even I understand if that's all you know him for. In 2004, McLean was inducted into the Songwriters Hall of Fame. In 2018, BMI certified that American Pie and Vincent had reached 5 million and 3 million airplays, respectively. Now, who were some of his early musical influences? Frank Sinatra and Buddy Holly for two. Now, as a teenager, Mclean became interested in folk music, particularly that music of a group called The Weavers. And by age 18, he had bought his first guitar and was making contacts in the music business. 16, folks, and becoming friends with folk singers Eric Darling and Fred Hellerman. They were with the group The Weavers. Hellerman said, quote, "He called me one day and said, 'I'd like to come and visit you,' and that's what he did. We became good friends. He has the most remarkable music memory of anyone I've ever known." Throughout this essay, you will hear quotations from very notable people who say very similar things about Don McLean. Now, McLean graduated, actually he attended Villanova University, didn't graduate, dropped out after 4 months. After leaving Villanova, he became associated with famed folk music agent Harold Leventhal for several months before teaming up with his personal manager, Herb Gart. And he and Gart worked together for 18 years. Now, for the next 6 years, he performed at venues and events, including the Bitter End and also the venue, the Gaslight Cafe in New York City, the Newport Folk Festival, the Cellar Door in Washington, D.C., and the Troubadour in Los Angeles. Now, Gart's 18-year tenure as McLean's manager ended in the 1980s. Following Gart's death, not before, but following Gart's death, McLean talked about why he and Gart broke up. McLean basically said, "I feel it's important to note that Herb did many good things for me in the beginning, but he could not deal with my success, as odd as that may seem." In 1982, McLean said, "Herb told me that his associate, Walt Hoffer, who ran Copyright Services Bureau, had stolen $90,000 from my bank account, but had put it back. This was a cover story and a lie. Furthermore, the amount turned out to be more like $200,000. And because Gart was now complicit in the crime, I fired him. He sued me, but settled for a small amount and was never heard from again. There are so many in this business that artists get advantage of and usually sweep it under the rug, but I don't. I wanted people to know the truth about my journey." And you hear that from so many rock stars. Their managers just steal from them. They just steal from them. I've heard countless interviews from countless rock stars who say the same thing. My manager just stole from me. My agent just stole from me. I don't know why they do that. Now, is it the fact that they really didn't steal from them? That the artist just isn't savvy enough to understand the difference between travel expenses and stealing? I don't know. But that seems to be a very common thread throughout the music industry. Agents, managers stealing from the artists. Now, McLean did want to go back to school. In fact, he attended night school at Iona College and received a bachelor's degree in business administration. That was in 1968. He turned down a scholarship to Columbia University Graduate School in favor of pursuing a career as a singer-songwriter, performing at the Cafe Lena in Saratoga Springs, California, and the Main Point in Bryn Mawr, Pennsylvania. That's a suburb of Philadelphia. I pass it all the time on my travels. Now, later that year, with the help of a grant from the New York State Council on Arts, McLean began reaching a wider audience and visits to town up and down the Hudson River. He learned the art of performing from his friend and mentor, the one and only Pete Seeger. Yeah, that Pete Seeger, the folk artist. McLean accompanied Seeger on his Clearwater boat tour up and down the Hudson River in 1969 to raise awareness about environmental pollution on the river. During this time, McLean wrote songs that appeared on his first album, Tapestry. McLean also co-edited the songs and sketches of the first Clearwater crew, with sketches by Thomas B. Allen, for which Pete Seeger wrote the foreword. Seeger and McLean wrote and sang Shenandoah on the 1974 Clearwater album. McLean thinks about his experiences working with Seeger. He said, Hardly a day goes by when I don't think of Pete and how generous and supportive he was.